for anyone who is in a leadership position or who is aspiring to be in a leadership position, when you get to the point of dealing with those difficult employees, I think that these three questions kind of mirror what a lot of leaders go through, and oftentimes what we fail to address. One of the first questions that I received was, how can I terminate an employee who's being difficult? In most environments, you can't really just terminate somebody for being difficult. It just doesn't happen. Most laws, rules and regulations, policies are in place to actually protect employees, from being wrongfully terminated. And you can find yourself in a lot of hot water with HR and a lot of the senior leaders if you go about it in that route. The good thing, though, is that as leaders, we can help people promote out of the business if we find that it's not a good fit, and if they agree that it's not a good fit. I think too many times when we label an employee difficult, we don't really take the time to understand their story, to understand that arrival path. Like, how did they get to that point? Why are they looking for just being difficult? You can, find other things that that may be happening with that employee if they're violating other aspects of the job, or if they are actually committing terminable offenses. Then that's a conversation that you could potentially have with HR in terms of terminating. But my advice to you in that situation, if you're that frustrated, take a step back and first just have a real conversation with that employee. Ask that employee, what is it that you can do to help them be better? Give them solid examples of them being difficult, so that way they understand exactly where you're coming from. It's a different thing when you tell someone that they're just being negative versus you giving them a specific example. Hey, I noticed when you were speaking with this particular person, this is what you said to them. Tell them exactly what they said. You told this person that that you were no good and that you were bad at your job. That's being negative. So give them those examples of how they're being difficult, and allow them to explain to you, what they're feeling and what's happening with them as to the reasons. The next question was, how can I have a productive professional relationship with a difficult employee who admits that they hate their job? And this one is tough. When you have someone who's openly admitting that they hate their job, that can be a difficult situation to deal with. But it goes back again to what we first talked about, getting to the root of that. There's something that's causing that. It could be that person really just hates their job. And if they do, then let's go back to that, how do we help promote that person out of the job? Is it the company culture? Is it the leadership? Is it something actually going on within that work situation that's making them feel like that? Or is it that baggage that they're bringing from home or bringing from another situation? And this is something that you can't assume. You can't guess these things. You have to actually bite the bullet and have that conversation with the employee to try to find out where that is coming from. And if it truly is stemming from a place of, hey, I'm just burnt out, I'm over this place, I've been here long enough, I'm not growing, I'm not developing, it's just time for me to move on, then as a leader, it is your duty to help that person find and reach that next step. And sometimes that next step is not going to be with that company. It's just not. And we have to be okay with that. And once we're okay with that and we show that genuine concern and we let that employee know that, hey, although we are company people, we care about you as a person. So whatever it is that I can do, however we can help you reach the next place in your life journey, they'll be okay with that. And you'll notice a much different person coming to work. You'll notice a much different attitude, different posture, different behavior, because now they have something to work towards. Now they have something to work for. And even though they may truly be miserable in that job, they now can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes we have to help them create that light. It was never brought to their attention. No one ever had that conversation. We just kind of labeled them as difficult and left them alone. You can't do that. You can't leave them alone. Those difficult ones actually need the most love, actually need the most attention. And once you get to the root of that, I promise you, you'll notice that you'll have a better situation with that employee. With the PEEL model that I sent out, just in general, so that is promote, engage, enlighten, and learn. And not necessarily in that order. First thing is engage. Okay, before you do anything, you want to engage your employee, engage them in positive conversation, engage them in productive conversation. One of your first conversations with your employees cannot be about the rules, cannot be about company policy. It can't be about your expectations in regards to performance. One of those first conversations has to be about how can they be successful under your leadership. If you have not given your employees the tools to be successful under your leadership, 9 times out of 10, they will fail. People have to know how to deal with you as a person, how to deal with you as a leader. They need to know your expectations of them as a leader. And when I say the expectations, I don't mean your sales metrics. I don't mean your customer service expectations. I mean those expectations as in, how do you expect them to, communicate with you? Is it okay to come to you in the morning before you had that first cup of coffee? Is that conversation going to be a productive conversation? It's okay to let your employees know, hey, I'm not a morning person. So if you come to me before 9, before I've had that first cup of coffee, the conversation is probably not going to be productive. So if you have something really important to talk about, or something that I really need to be engaged in, the best time to do that is in the afternoon. That's okay. Let people know that, so that way, at least if they have something, that's important and they need your full attention, they know not to do it at 8 o'clock in the morning. They know to, come to you at what you may deem a decent hour. And that makes a world of a difference, because now you're in a better space, you're engaged, you can really give them your full attention and not just blow them off and not just listen to give a quick response that you really didn't care about. It can actually be a productive conversation. Small things like that make all the difference. When I'm first introducing myself to people who are going to be under my leadership, I list all of my faults that I know about, and some of the ones that I might not necessarily agree with, but people have told me about, just so they can kind of understand the person that they're about to be working with. And that way they can kind of look at themselves and think, okay, how can I handle this person? How can I talk to Joni? What's going to be the best way for me to get the most out of her? And also, how is she going to be able to help develop me? I'm very, very transparent when it comes to my weaknesses as well as when it comes to my strengths, but more so letting people know, hey, this is how I can help you. This is how I would like to help you, but I'm probably not going to be any good in this area, but let's work together to maybe find somebody or find a resource that may be good for you in that area, because that's going to be what you need. And just be honest and have that conversation. People will respect you, and it will do a world of wonders for the actual working relationship. And that's where you get the productivity from. You don't get the productivity from sending out the emails with who's on top and who's on the bottom, or writing on the board, how good this person is doing versus how worse the rest of the folks are doing. That's not where the productivity comes from. The productivity comes from them respecting you as their leader and them wanting to do a good job for you, because they appreciate your leadership and they know how to work under you. They know how to make the best of that relationship. That's where that productivity is going to come from. The second piece in the PEEL model is the learn. And this is the part where leaders, you really got to keep your mouth shut on this one. You have to engage in that conversation for the sole purpose of learning. You have to engage in this conversation for the sole purpose of learning. If you've brought yourself to this conversation for any other reason other than to learn what that so-called difficult employee has to say, then the conversation is going to be a complete waste of everyone's time. This is where you let them know, hey, I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to assume. I'm not here to speculate. I'm not here to push my ideas and what I think on you. I just want to learn from you. Take notes. Take a lot of notes, because a lot of times these so-called difficult employees, they've been watching and they've been listening and they have a lot of information and they've seen a lot that a lot of times that naked eye has missed. And they'll be able to tell you some things about yourself, about other people, about the company, and just about life in general as they see it, that will come as a complete surprise to you. So you have to be willing to learn from them. And this is not to say that everything they say that you agree with, or that it's something that you want to adopt. This is not the case. This is just that you've opened your mind to understanding the world from their perspective, from where they sit. And once you've done that, once you can actually understand their perspective, I guarantee it'll make those conversations and it'll make the work environment a lot easier and a lot more productive, because at least now you understand, so you know how you can handle the situations. You can't handle situations based off of assumptions, based off of what you think. You can't handle people based off of what you think they thought, or how you are interpreting their perception for them. No, let them tell you what their perception is. Let them tell you how they feel. Let them tell you what they think, and then you take that and then you use that to help you manage that relationship. And then the fourth thing on that, well, no, we're on 3, is enlighten. And enlighten, this is where you actually get to speak. But you have to, ask them for their permission to allow you to speak. Sounds a little different, right? But you have to. If you have not gotten their permission to speak and to share your thoughts and to share your ideas, you're going to be talking to a brick wall. And sometimes, especially with those that we like to deem difficult, sometimes that's not all going to happen in the same conversation. Sometimes you have to let them just get it all out. Let them get it all out, and then maybe come back to that conversation 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours later, after they've had a chance to digest the fact that they've gotten that out and had a chance to reflect on that conversation. And then that's when you ask, humbly and respectfully, is it okay if I address some of the things that you spoke about? Is it okay if I give you my perception, if I give you the company's perception on some of the things that you've talked about? And once they've given you that okay, and you don't speak a word until they've given you that okay, because if you start talking and they haven't accepted it, not only is it going to be a waste of time, it's going to be total disrespect to them as a person. And you don't want to do that, because at the end of the day, regardless of how they feel or what they think, they're still a person with real thoughts and real emotions, and us as leaders, we have to respect that. So once you've earned that okay, because you have to earn that, once you've earned that okay, then that's when you enlighten them. And that's when you do some of that course correction, and you let them know in a non-threatening way, hey, I know that you said this, I know that you said that, but let me help you understand from my perspective, from the company perspective, what that really means and what we are trying to get across. And then you ask, how did we mess that up? How did we miss the mark in our communication? Because what you understand is way off from what we intended for it to be. And you ask those questions, and I guarantee they'll give you real helpful feedback on how we dropped the ball and how we missed it. Yes, mutual respect. You hit it right on the head. Mutual respect. They'll let you know, because now they feel like they're a part of it. Now you've made them part of it. And now they're not just this difficult employee that always has an attitude, that's always complaining, always has something negative to say. No, now they're actually part of, how do we fix it? How do we own up to where we failed and how do we course correct, so that way we're not failing more employees and that we're going the right way going forward. So earn that part of the conversation, earn that enlightening part of the conversation, and be prepared. Come with your facts, but don't come, beating anybody over top of the head with the facts in the rule book, but come prepared to, really give them that perspective in a way that makes sense to them, and in a way that they'll understand it and they'll appreciate it, and also in a way that they can actually do something with it. Nobody wants useless information. Nobody wants information that just, makes them feel like, this was a total waste of my time. Give them something useful, something that they can use. And then the last one is the promote factor. All right. This one doesn't happen in that conversation. This one actually happens after the fact, after the conversation. And this happens in a genuine way when you're talking to other people. You have to find something to promote them in a positive light. Even if it may seem as though that they're constantly being negative, or that they're constantly being this difficult employee. Us as leaders, it's our job to find the good in every situation, to find the good in every person. If you're not able to find at least some shred of good in every single person that's under your leadership, then I would look in that mirror and challenge yourself as a leader to see what you need to do and how you need to grow. So challenge yourself. Find that good and use that good for the greater good. Guarantee you. Imagine that employee, as passionate as they are about the things that are wrong, imagine them being that passionate about the things that are right. Imagine how that could influence the team. Imagine how that could push the company's mission and vision into a positive place if you were able to use that same voice that talks about all the bad to talk about some of the good. It's possible, but you have to earn that. You have to earn that, and the only way you're going to earn that is by making yourself transparent and making yourself real, putting yourself in a position to be seen as a real person and not just as some company statue that's there to, beat people over top of the heads every time you get a chance. So I hope that that's been helpful. Please like, share this video, invite others to like it and to share it. I know that was a lot. I tried to give you guys as much as I could in the amount of time that I had to be able to spend on this. I promise you, every single email that you guys sent me, I will respond. We'll do this more often. I appreciate you guys and thank you so much. All right, go out and be great.